started my PhD kind of directly related to the work that I was doing in the civil service. And so since I've been here, I've been working still part-time at the civil service while doing a full-time PhD. So that's quite a lot of work, but also quite rewarding as well, because my work sort of kind of directly relates to what I certainly used to do in the civil service at the Department of Health and Social Care before the pandemic. Obviously, the pandemic sort of changed things a little bit, but the idea was to sort of have that parallel between my sort of professional life and my sort of academic interests. So Birkbeck actually works ideally for me, because when I started at the PhD, I was doing it part-time. I hadn't yet gotten any funding, and with the job, it kind of offered the flexibility to take classes in the evenings, have seminars in the evenings, much more flexible relationship with the university in that setting. And so it was ideal in that sense, but also because it offered kind of the Bloomsbury College's connection as well. Being in the heart of London, having exposure to lots of different colleges within Bloomsbury, presenting, bits of work at different departments within the University of London as a whole. That was a really, really big pull as well. My research interests lie in contracting and innovation, specifically focused on healthcare markets. So that kind of, I would say that the way you described that in economics is that I'm sort of interested in the industrial organization of the pharmaceutical sector, and primarily my angle on that is sort of how the pharmaceutical sector is shaped by large government contracts, or is it shaped by large government contracts? And so I'm particularly interested in understanding how contracting arrangements between a healthcare system like the NHS, gives incentives to the pharmaceutical industry to develop new pharmaceutical drugs. I found, the department to be really open and really, really flexible to find ways to work with you, which is something you don't necessarily find everywhere in all academic departments. But they don't compromise on the rigor, and I really appreciate that, because you could do a PhD in a different department, get a very high level of rigor, but you might not be able to fit that into your lifestyle or your circumstances. And so what I think really stands out for Birkbeck is that you can get the intellectual rigor, you get exposure to all sorts of frontier techniques, but at the same time, it allows you to be flexible and to fit a training program or a PhD within your current circumstances. And I think that's a really important thing going forward. I think a lot of universities will need to learn how to do that sort of thing. I quite like the interdisciplinary approach. So in the PhD room, there are mathematicians, there are statisticians, and then there are economists. And you get a very sort of different flavor of how people approach the same question. So a statistician will answer the same question in a very different way from an economist. An economist would bring a lot of their theory, and the statistician will sort of say, no, I don't really want to go there. And so that kind of perspective, that kind of interdisciplinary approach that the department offers you, kind of keeps you a little bit, challenging yourself and not getting really caught up in an echo chamber, if you see what I mean. So I think that was also really, really interesting and helpful. So whether it's something that I take back to the civil service and try to bring new ideas within the civil service, or whether I think about doing a more policy research interfacing kind of role in the future, or even teaching, I haven't fully decided, but I like the sort of options it offers me. I do find it more rewarding to really get into the meat of the issue, and so if I could find a role like that at some point, and the skills that the program has offered me, so I've learned lots of new skills through the program. I obviously had some before, but I've learned how to manage very, very, very large data sets. The machine learning aspect of things, I've had to work with data sets that I don't think you could computationally work with outside sort of a very fast computer setting. And so all of that kind of thing, I think that offers me a little bit of a way of whether I go into sort of consulting or whether I would go into some sort of policy research interface kind of role, or a more long-term role within the civil service as well. One that gives you the time and space to really do the meaty bits.